Miyamoto's track record for good ideas is unparalleled. He is widely credited with being the driving force behind three of the biggest names in gaming: Super Mario, Donkey Kong, and The Legend of Zelda. Beyond his other Miyamoto-led game projects that are not quite as well known, but still beloved, include games like Pikmin, Star Fox, and Nintendogs. More recently, he has been instrumental in the creation of the Super Nintendo World amusement parks in Japan and the United States of America, and the film he produced, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, grossed over $1 billion at the box office, making it one of the most financially successful animated films of all time. However, Shigeru Miyamoto is not an easy man to work with. At least, that's his opinion of himself. In an interview all the way back in 1986, shortly after the release of Super Mario Bros. On the NES, he said, "I'm disliked by the programmers. Of course, we decide the main important aspects of the game beforehand. But as the development goes on, there are lots of small details we update. So they say about me, hey, if you work with Miyamoto, you will never know when you are done. Watch out, you'll find yourself overloaded with a mountain of work at the end." In the many decades that have passed since this remark, Miyamoto's reputation has grown and grown. Not only has he cemented his public persona as the father of Mario and the genius developer behind Nintendo's meteoric rise to the top of the games industry, he has also proven time and time again why his fellow game developers find him so frustrating to work with. The history of Nintendo is filled with tales of Miyamoto, the company's golden child, wrecking everything for those around him. An offhand word here, a careless remark there, and suddenly an entire game project, or indeed an entire gaming franchise, ends up getting dramatically reworked. Zelda producer Eiji Aonuma of his work with Miyamoto on The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. He said, "I took everything to Mr. Miyamoto and showed him what we have been working on, and in typical Mr. Miyamoto fashion, he took the tea table and flipped it over. So it was then my job to put the tea table back in order. But together we worked to both put the tea table back in order. It is a very enjoyable job, and I'm having a great time doing it." Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon director Bryce Holiday has a similar story of table flipping from early in the game's development. Apparently, third-party developers are by no means spared from Miyamoto's whims. He said for Miyamoto-san's direct involvement with next-level games, "He was kind of like a mentor. I believe he uses the word shepherd. He would often come in and steer the ship in a new direction when we were getting off course. At one point, he threw out all the bosses of the game and made us start over from our angle that was kind of a tea table flip, but maybe it just had bad legs and was wobbling or something. He often challenged us to not go with our first idea or to experiment further on different things and then cherry pick our best ideas." Thankfully, only one boss had been fully implemented into the game at the time, but even so, this was a major upheaval for a team that had assumed all had been going well. Not every Nintendo developer is as patient as Aonuma or Holiday. Miyamoto's habit of upending the tea table and ruining months, or even years of work is, understandably, a source of great frustration for many of his colleagues. The developers who worked on Wii Sports Resort have many terrible tales to tell of the presentations that they dreaded. Giving to Miyamoto. According to an Iwata Asks interview, each key planner had to stand in front of the notorious producer for an hour, showing off a game mechanic and receiving harsh feedback. Apparently, one poor developer who has remained anonymous to maintain their dignity was responsible for the game's archery mechanic. They had been testing the game extensively and so had become exceptionally good at hitting targets. When it came time to present their work to Miyamoto, though, they just kept missing. Arrows were flying all over the place. According to those in attendance, said fellow Wii Sports Resort developer Takayuki Shimomura, "If you looked at the screen, you could see that he wasn't able to hold it steady at all. I had never seen anyone shaking so bad before when playing the game, so I said, 'You are shaking.' He replied, 'It's nerves.'" Unfortunately, the developer's shaky presentation didn't exactly impress Miyamoto, and they received a lengthy round of negative feedback that they'd been dreading. Miyamoto himself insists that this reputation of flipping the table is often a necessary part of the development process. It doesn't win him any friends in the moment, but it makes for a better game overall. He said if everyone in the project is just trying to get along with each other, then it could all fall apart. When it gets to that point, I bust it all out in a conference. People refer to that point as the time where I knock over the table. I am not a nice guy. If I was a nice guy, I'd just sidle up to people and say, "Why don't you do this?" But no, sometimes you have to bite down and show that like I'm strong when I flip out. It's because I'm being sincere in my desire to get something done with the project. In another interview, he said, "You want to know my reputation among Nintendo staff members? I am loud and hard on everybody. I stick to minute detailed points. I am the guy who changes his opinions one after another. And I am the guy who is still fighting for his opinion past midnight. People who don't know me say that I just spout things out from my gut feeling, but as they come to know me better, they think of me as more of a logical type." For developers working on Nintendo properties, Miyamoto's involvement or oversight typically involves a lot of additional work and more than a few late nights. Nevertheless, Miyamoto's opinions are highly valued. As crushing as it may be for developers to be told to start work all over again, the results speak for themselves. Beyond this are the many games that Miyamoto has influenced, even if he wasn't a major player in their design process. Most notable is the Pokemon franchise, the single largest merchandising empire on Earth, which owes much of its success to Miyamoto's advocacy and encouragement. There is even a character in the long-running Pokemon series named after Miyamoto, showing just how impactful he was during the original development of the brand. Miyamoto's intervention with HAL Laboratories' Kirby series very nearly bankrupted the entire company, but the result was a far stronger game that went on to enjoy tremendously healthy sales and a partnership between HAL and Nintendo which has lasted to the modern day. As a senior figure at Nintendo, Miyamoto has been responsible for training and mentoring generations of up-and-coming developers. His lessons can be seen throughout the entire Nintendo library and beyond software to the very fabric of the company's game systems. It was Miyamoto's idea, for example, to make the most frequently used buttons on the Nintendo 64 and GameCube controllers larger for easy to use. Miyamoto's track record is not spotless. To argue otherwise would be to ignore the fact that he is a fallible human being, and there have been plenty of times when disgruntled developers and consumers alike have felt that his flipping of the tea table has left games tangibly weaker. Even so, the number of games that have been improved by his suggestions far outweigh the times he has made things worse. How often Miyamoto has ended up ruining a perfectly good game is a matter of personal opinion. Getting your tea table flipped by Shigeru Miyamoto might be a horrible experience, but most Nintendo developers agree it is worth it in the long run. And Nintendo games are not made by a single visionary genius who bestows all necessary wisdom on his underlings. Every game the company releases is a collaborative process. Miyamoto alone is not responsible for his games. He is not a creative wonderkind, but rather a part of a far larger team who rely on each other. Indeed, Miyamoto's greatest skill may well be his ability to manage a project to bring out the best in the developers around him, and to steer his talented peers in new and interesting directions. Miyamoto's success comes from the fact that he has needed to rely on others to make his ideas bear fruit, and it is because he's so willing to sacrifice other people's previous efforts that Nintendo has won its reputation for consistent quality in game design. It is for this reason that so many of Nintendo's most popular games, at one point or another during development, suffered a trademark Miyamoto table flip. The moral of the story is that sometimes, in order to make something good, you have to go against the grain. So what are your thoughts and what you think about Miyamoto? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more gaming updates. Until next time, happy gaming!